Welcome to the Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Lipsky of Break of Day Capital. I talk to leading experts to discuss a wide range of subjects to educate investors on best-in-class practices to build legacy wealth and positively impact communities. Let's jump in. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Lipsky with Break of Day Capital. Be sure to join our Facebook group, Asset Management Mastery, where we have a great community of thousands of like-minded individuals sharing resources and best practices. Most investors rely on gut feelings, shiny brochures, or hype, and that's exactly how people miss red flags and lose money. At Break of Day Capital, we do things differently. We help investors make smarter decisions before the deal ever hits your inbox. From our educational webinars to our Invest Smart book to real tools like our portfolio tracker, we're here to give you the edge most investors don't even know they need. If you've been valuing our podcast and want to take the next step, subscribe to our newsletter. You'll get early access to webinars, new investor tools, and market insights sent straight to your inbox. Break of Day Capital, because smart investing starts before the deal.
Financial advisor Bromley Palamountain of Northwestern Mutual empowers people to make their financial dreams a reality through purpose, clarity, and design. Be sure to check out his links in the show notes.
Today on the podcast, we have Larry English. Larry is a former first-round NFL draft pick and professional linebacker who transitioned from peak athletics to peak entrepreneurship. Following a 7-year NFL career, Larry retired from football to build and scale a real estate development firm that successfully transacted multiple 8-figure deals across the country. But the success came at a cost. His new mission is to be the door to peak performance for 1 million men ready to lead with legacy. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you so much for having me, Gary. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to have this chat with you. And again, like I said, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, what led you to retire from football and get into real estate?
I guess that's a two-pronged question right there. Look, let me start by kind of communicating and conveying this. The opportunity, right, to play at a sport in the highest level, at a professional level, at the highest level you can possibly play. It was just like the actualization of a life's dream. And so it was the most incredible experience in that after something like that happens, it's like your mindset for like what you're capable of and what actually is possible. You see like there's literally no ceiling, right? It's funny. I was listening to this book a little bit earlier this morning on the way to the gym, Michael Masterson's Ready, Fire, Aim. It was the book. And it's like one of those books that a lot of entrepreneurs like have a lot of reverence for. And I finally getting around to reading it. And he was talking about like Muggsy Bogues making it to the NBA, right? And he was like, making it to the NBA is like such a like low percentage and low probability thing. Like entrepreneurship, even building $100 million company, is not that hard, right? But it's very hard, right? But it's not maybe as low probability as that. And it's like even that's another example of like hearing things like that. It allows me to like put into perspective like what I was able to accomplish, right? And so there's a lot of beauty in having done that. Now, having said that, right? The fact of the matter is that football is like literally it's battle, right? It's it's a modern day form of like it's like modern day Sparta to a degree,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, frankly, I had gotten to the point where my body was telling me like, yeah, it's time for the next thing, right? And in parallel to that, I was fortunate enough to also just kind of have like the entrepreneurial bug, and that entrepreneurial bug manifested early on in my playing career in that I wanted to have more involvement in investing the money that I was making on the field. And so that naturally brought me to looking at real estate because I think it's kind of like a low barrier sector to a degree that, I mean, it's supply and demand and it's like very tangible in a lot of ways for people. And I think that's what it was for me. And I remember I got drafted in 2009. So this is the pit of the global financial crisis. And I remember at that time, I'm from the Midwest, Chicago area originally. I get drafted to the San Diego Chargers, so I'm in Southern California, so everything looks expensive to me. But everybody was like, "Look, this is your opportunity to buy something on the cheap." I'm like, "On the cheap?" It's very, you know what I'm saying? And so in that, call it, I don't know, 2 or 3 year period from when I was looking at things the first time, I would say in like 2010, um, and then just to see like that appreciation on certain things in that 2 to 3 year time frame, I was like, "Whoa, dang, they were right." So let me hop in now. So then I started, making small investments. I would say like around 2013, end of 2013, and did pretty well on the early stuff that I was doing on my own. It was residential, and we started out like just doing value add to properties around LA, and then we got into ground up development not soon after that, and it just constantly like grew over that 3 to 4 year time frame, and it was like it's a very like there was a lot of exuberance in the market also at that point in time. And so I had enough going on to where I was ready to step away. I was like kind of like 1 foot in the league still and 1 foot in business. And in 2016, I ended up going down with a getting my knee blown out. And I had at that point in time we had like um, a 8 figure development deal that we were working on. And I put a partnership that I put together on something that I found. And so that effectively was like kind of like a natural path for me to really move on to this next chapter full time. So that's kind of like how I made that initial plunge from out of the league and into entrepreneurship full time.
Well, it was great that you were developing it over time. It wasn't something where your NFL career was over and now you're trying to build up a knowledge base that takes years,
Yeah,
to
it
develop.
does.
You were already developing it, which is great. And obviously being an NFL linebacker, you're the best of the best. We're talking about absolute peak performance. But at some point in the early 20s, you decided to make another pivot
Hmm.
into peak performance for yourself. Talk about that.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is that started just like you said, me being an athlete, so closely tied to the idea around peak performance my whole life, to be quite honest. From the age I was 10, 11 years old, looking at the muscle fitness magazines because I knew I wanted to be a football player. And like football players, these big guys that actually have muscles and they're not chubby like me. How do I fix this? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I got to eat following the meal plan in the muscle magazine. Okay, egg whites, fat-free cheese, and like sweet potatoes with spray and Pam on the pan, like the old, like I guess mid 90s type diet. Everything was low fat. Anyway, so like I think that's when this kind of like underpinning an idea around like performance really started to fester and like really grow. And like it just became something that was a bug I always had. And in essence, all it simply was that everything like with ball with sports like it felt like it was so serious for me from like a young age. It felt like life or death. Like I had to do this thing. Like I was so serious about everything such at such a young age that I was always looking for my competitive advantage. Like where can I get my edge, right? And so health and performance from a very young age tended to be one of those things that I leaned on. And fast forward to me playing this whole career, making it professionally, retiring in 2016. Now, as you said, I'm around all these guys and I'm in this industry where people have more tenure than me. So it's like, how do I truncate my learning curve? One of the first things I did was just completely got rid of this idea around like focusing and allocating any time to health and performance. I didn't think I needed it. I thought I was under the impression for that first year that like I need to just have my nose in a spreadsheet or, roaming roaming the streets, canvassing for opportunities and reading books and getting out and, belly to belly and meeting people and networking and that type of stuff. So it had put no focus on like the health and performance thing that had been a part of my foundation my whole life, right? And keys to my success, right? When a lot of people overlooked me, for a lot of years. Well, it didn't take very long for that wake up call to come. And it took about a year. And within a year, I had ballooned in weight. I was just completely, I mean, look, I was burnt out. I was 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight to be quite honest. Um, and I started to feel that like myself as like a mental athlete and like a corporate athlete, I was starting to like fizzle a little bit and fade and like slow down. And I'm only 31 years old or 30 at the time or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I think so. Something's going on here. The first thing was stepping on the scale. I saw I weighed 283 pounds. It was like completely pathetic. So that's number one. But that was kind of like a vanity type metric that I wanted to, okay, I knew I just don't look like myself. I need to get this in order. But what really happened that really gave me um, kind of like a kick in the teeth was in, I think I want to say it was 2016 or 17, the film Concussion came out. And I had just retired, and unbeknownst to me, I walk into the theater to watch this film with Will Smith, and this is the first time I actually see like visceral imagery of what this CTE thing was that I've heard like talked about on the news, but didn't give much oxygen to. But I saw that imagery, right? And I was like, wait, this is what's going on with like retired players and like even some current players. Are we good audio wise? Okay.
Yeah, I
And
just didn't click that. Sorry.
okay, and so when I walked out of there, I was pretty unnerved, to be quite honest. When I saw like what had manifested for people. And I was like, oh, this health thing is something serious. And so from that point moving forward, it was full steam ahead back on this whole idea of health. One, I wasn't going to allow that type of future to be in the cards for me. That was number one. So I was going to go on a hunt to really just preempt any of that stuff from impeding anything that I was building. And in so doing that, I just I had this opportunity to really just round up the troops again, all of my performance team, and really just get back tip of the sphere again on the health front because I realized like, look, this is going to be my competitive advantage in this real estate space. Nobody's going to know about this, but I'm going to be able to outcompete because I know that I have to be a peak performer again. And so look, I invested money, hundreds of thousands of dollars of this stuff and, kissed some frogs and trial and error. And finally, after a couple of years, it all clicked and figured out. And I stumbled upon this thing, this system, this framework, we call it the peak performance GPS. And ultimately that peak performance GPS, which is this synergized optimization, is this cohesive framework and an operating system for a peak performer, right? It was my secret weapon for a lot of years as I was growing this real estate, vision that I had. And nobody knew about it until when in June of 2022, we were awarded the right to buy a multiple nine-figure deal. And, and about 3 weeks after that, Jerome Powell came down and threw the hammer down with a 75 basis point rate hike. Capital markets freeze. And all of a sudden, this inflection point in my business and my partner's business, this life-changing opportunity that we had rightfully won and were awarded, the writing was on the wall that this was deals not no longer going to happen in the economic environment that we were in. Nobody's cutting that $200 million equity check any longer in that environment. So look, the rest of 22 is a bloodbath. 20 January 23, my baby is born. And right at the same time where I had to just finally walk away from this big time opportunity that we had, and I had to have that conversation with my wife, and I just decided that at that point in time, it was a little bit of a recalibration. I said, do I want to be exposed to exogenous events like that for my professional journey for the rest of what I do? Do I want to continue to be, the deal guy, always going after the deal, always going after the deal? And look, I had fun with that, but I just had to be honest with myself and just ask myself, is that what my actual assignment and my calling was? And if I'm being honest, I felt like the 7 years leading up to that point, I was kind of always at a loss for that. I felt like I was reaching a little bit with that. Um, and so it didn't take long, but about midway through 2023, I realized that, look, my peak performance GPS and my secret that I kept so close to the vest, I think that there's an opportunity to actually use that to help people. And I had friends that I had lost that just weren't paying attention to their health and that were performing at a decent level, that had grown their businesses and things like that, but really weren't operating at their peak, and they're no longer with us. And I said, look, something's got to give here. And I said, look, maybe this is my opportunity to actually make a real impact. And that's what prompted me and compelled me to launch what we're doing here with my company now. It's called MindBody Mastery. And so basically what we do is we take this peak performance GPS that I kept so close to the vest for a lot of years as my performance system, and we install that in the life of high performers, entrepreneurs, and executives and what have you, those corporate athletes that could use something like this, the corporate athlete that is doing well despite only operating at 60% of their peak. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And absolutely, if you're not healthy on the inside, you're the clarity of decisions, um, your energy, you're like you said, it's you're just not operating at peak performance. And,
yeah.
and what are some of the things that people kind of misunderstand about achieving peak performance?
Yeah, look, I think that one of the things is one of the big misnomers is like, look, we like to really attach to the shiny objects in all realms. Health is no different. And so then it's like, what are the shiny objects? You got things like peptides, you got like all the nootropics, you got things like that that are really interesting, like the biohacks and stuff like that. But the thing that I realized was that all those things are enhancements. What's first required is setting the foundation. If you're focusing on enhancements and you haven't set the foundation with like really good habits, psychological discipline, feeding your bodily system with the necessary nutrients that it needs to be able to capitalize on some enhancement or some peptide or some NAD or whatever it might be, some whatever the next biohack is, then it's a fool's errand. And so um, that's one of the big misnomers is like, look, what we first need to do is we need to set up like constraints around ourselves. If you don't have the discipline, then get an accountability partner. All right. And so that's one of the main things that people get with when you involve yourself in a framework and a system. What you buy is the accountability aspect and the certainty around that this is a proven framework or a proven system that's structured. There's no guessing, there's no questions. I know what to eat. I know what to do for my training. I'm not spending all day in the gym. Efficiency, effectiveness. Um, and and then that allows you to like really enhance things. So it's setting that foundation. And one of the foundations, really, frankly, is just understanding the data and having a really good team, team of docs behind you that are like optimization focused docs. And that's what I had. That's what like kept me ahead, right? And so I we formed like a really incredible partnership with a lifestyle and longevity clinic that serves as like the foundation of really overseeing this optimization aspect for our clinics. It's quarterly blood work. It's all really making sure that all the key markers that map to mental clarity, longevity, energy, drive, motivation, those key markers are all fully optimized. Oh yeah, and then as a side benefit, you see this physical transformation that happens with people too. And then the psychic transformation tends to go alongside that.
Let's talk about mindset. We were talking about that a little bit before we hit record. How does mindset play a role in it, and your effectiveness for peak performance?
Yeah, so the way that mindset plays a role in this whole thing is like I uh I always read a lot of mindset focused literature, and it was always one of those things that like invigorated me and inspired me. But if I'm being honest, there were always times as well where it could be a little bit of an exercise in avoidance, to say the least, at certain times, right?
Yep.
And you spend so much time in the clouds, you don't have your feet on the ground to actually go out and be in the trenches and really take any of the actions necessary to really materialize all this stuff that we dream up in our minds, right? And so I'm saying that just to say that there was a point in my life where I feel like I received this like inner satisfaction of being able to go to that realm to avoid maybe the things that are uncomfortable. That's what we really need to be focused on. And I think that I loved so many of those ideas, but didn't know necessarily how to apply it beyond what they might say in a book around writing something down in a journal 15 million times. Right. And I get where they're coming from is under the pretense that to get your mind focused on the thing so that you can actually take the actions necessary and all of that. And that's amazing. But there were just like certain things that over time that happened where I just had these eureka moments, right? And so when you think about like this performance, like part of our program is performance coaching. And so I'll do like with our high level programs, I'll do performance coaching like one on one, like a biweekly type thing with certain clients. They'll have me on like walkie talkie access and whatnot. And it's not like I'm spending majority of my time amping them up. They don't need to be hyped up. They need accountability. They need to have real systems that promote clarity to make sure that they're trending in the right direction in connection with the things that are important to them, right? And so we have a few systems within our process that are very objective. And those biweekly meetings, they look like real strategy sessions, right? And the reflection session as to what we said we were going to get done the 2 weeks prior, and did we hit those benchmarks? Did we get those actions taken care of, right? Because especially when you're talking about entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurship can be a lonely endeavor, even when you have a big team, because everyone's looking to you. And you, short of you being in the other mastermind groups with other like business people and entrepreneurs, it can be a lonely space because folks don't understand us. We're like born risk takers. They're willing to bet on ourselves beyond a shadow of a doubt when it looks like crazy, some of the things that we do. So so that's that accountability piece and why it's valuable, and the mindset systems, if you will. And just an example of one of those things where I just said we take a tangible approach to things. It's like the positive thinking thing, positive thought. Like it's an amazing idea, but what do I do with that? How do I take action on that? And how do I action that? Right. And, just re kind of re revisiting something that we had a chat about offline. It's like when we have a challenge or a difficulty, whether it be family, in the business, whatever it is, whatever is really weighing on us. When we have something that's really weighing on us, that's a signal that we're focused inside on us, on our own challenge, on our own difficulty. And so we're focused on the problem. People want to get out of debt, they focus on debt. Circular, right? And then they stay in debt because they're not
Right.
focused on creating. And so just something simple as when we're having challenges and difficulties, how do we not fixate it, and how to not fixate on it, and how do we think positive? Well, we have to recognize that the only reason we're thinking negative is because we're thinking about our own problem. So how do we invert that? We go think about somebody else's problem. And beyond just thinking about it, we go obsess over their problem and creating a solution for them and being the solution for them. What do we call that? Entrepreneurship and business. So go focus on solving someone else's problem, and then you'll find that, whoa, a 3 4 hour block went by. I was completely in what? Flow. I wasn't thinking about my problem at all because I was so focused on creating something that was going to help someone else. That's how you think positive, right? And so these are the things and what is that also? That's taking violent action in the direction toward that we want to go. And so those are the things that just examples of how we make some things that can be mindset more tangible and more actionable.
Yep. Absolutely. Hey, I'm curious, do you have a favorite piece of equipment, whether it's a gym equipment, something that you cook with, whatever is like your go-to, I can't live without like piece of equipment that you use in your day-to-day life.
Yeah. Wow, that's a tough one. Uh, Honestly, it probably sounds silly, but these little earbuds that I walk
All right.
around with, I'm using them now so that we don't pick up any background noise. But these are probably one of my little pieces of equipment that I lean on a lot because I'm always I'm kind of like an obsessive type person to a degree. And so I'm always focused on like whatever it is that I'm like creating or building. And so I'm always like walking around in between time, like like habit stacking. So it's like I'm walking around like getting all my, I don't know, getting my coffee in the morning and, you know, running around in the evening, like grabbing dinner or going to work out or walking through the house in transit, if you will. And I've always got like something playing. Always got some book playing or some podcast playing or some training playing or whatever it is. So I would probably say that the earbuds. My wife doesn't love that because she's talking to me and I'm just like walking around in the clouds. But
Right.
yeah, I'm guilty of always having the earbuds playing something that I'm looking to learn.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to find that edge, trying to keep learning, and
Yeah,
it's such an important life skill. And I think so many people just get content in where they are and don't have a desire to grow, and they just, if you're not getting better at what you're doing, you're getting worse because someone else is learning new tricks, utilizing AI, whatever it is, they're getting better. And if you're flatlining, you're falling behind, and
that's
any
correct.
and every facet of your life.
That's correct. Any flat line straight across is really contraction.
Yeah.
There's no there's no steady eddy in this whole thing.
Yep.
You're either expanding or contracting. And what's important is just making sure that trend is toward expansion. And the only way we do that is to be keen on a purpose as fluffy as it may sound. But it's the people that feel called to really doing something that tend to be the ones that is so focused on always looking to grow and expand. And you know what I mean?
What would be one thing you would tell your younger self about, maybe a habit or a peak performance that you wish you knew then that you know now?
Yeah, I think I would really focus on truly like a systematic approach. I think that like so many people, and this is where I went wrong as well, it's like you try to like piece together a solution and you do like I remember when I was younger, and if I'm being honest, it's like when I was like late 20s, 30, like right around the years that I retired, it's like so like focused on business and stuff like that. And even when I did get focused on health, I was still, going out for the late dinners and like thinking that I needed to network by like having the drinks and stuff like that. And um I think that they're just little micro cuts. It's like over time, it's like death by a thousand cuts because you're like working on the right things on one side of things, and then you're just pulling yourself back down with these other little habits that you think you need, but you really don't. And so now having like brought everything together and like systematized things in like a really cohesive manner, there's so much more fulfillment. Like I used to like seek fun a little bit more and like maybe to avoid things where now it's like I'd rather just be in bed by like 10, 11 o'clock because where I'm really thriving is like that following day when I'm really like growing and like building something.
Yep.
Um and that'd probably be one of the things I'd tell my younger self. I think that I was, those late 20s type realm, I was like I also wanted to have fun as I was building. I was like seeking this having fun thing. And it was like I was like avoiding something. I don't know what I was that I was running from, right? But it's really in the build and the creation endeavors where we really get that real satisfaction. That's like joy. And like people say I want to be happy. It's like because we'll be happy when we're like multiplying fruit. That's our calling. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Otherwise, we're just having fun, and that's very short-lived.
Yeah. Versus fulfillment almost, where
Yeah,
fulfillment lasts a hell of a lot longer than a period of joy, I'd say.
yeah. Like I even look at myself, when some of the years when I was just like really on the come, and I was just so hungry, like as like a college athlete and stuff like that. No money in my pocket, but I was just big opportunity on the table, and it just pulled the best out of me. And those were some of like the most vital years that I felt like, you know what I mean? Just looking back on it, and I feel like that way again now. Right. And then if I'm being honest, like I feel like there were probably some years for me as a professional, I felt like, oh, like I did so much work and I'm supposed to like reap the benefits to a degree and like have fun or whatever. And you go and you have fun and it's great, but it's not like fulfilling. It's not. That's probably why a lot of times people will say like, "Oh, the money didn't make me happy." Like, no, it's because you just like thought that the money was supposed to make you happy. It's not. It's just a tool. It just gives you more freedom for choice. It's not going to
Yeah.
be anything that makes you happy. It's just like if anything, that's a tool for you to continue to expand and have a bigger impact. And you just have to use it in the right way. So,
I got one more question for you, Larry. What advice would you give to someone who's hit a plateau and feels stuck?
um, uh, if I'm really being honest, I would ask them, have they got their blood work run by like a really sophisticated team? That's number one. I would do that. And if they do that, and if there's someone that's really like up on all of that science, and they know it's not something relative to their biology, then I would tell them that they need to really get clear on what it is that they're really focused on. Ask myself, like, look, am I playing the right game? Why is it that you feel stuck? And then the follow-on question is, are you getting yourself uncomfortable every day? Because
Yeah.
those are the things that we need to be doing. That's how you get unstuck. I'm gonna say one last thing, Gary. One of the things that I remember from playing ball is I remember like, especially like this was maybe I think yeah, it was my senior year in college. I was one of the most dominant players in the country. Like when I got and I went to a mid-major school, so I came in like kind of like an underdog type player. It wasn't like I had an offer from SC or Michigan. I didn't. But when I left, I was one of the most dominant players in the league, like or in the country, and I was the nation's at that time like active leader in sacks that was in the draft and what have you. And when I tell you that whole senior season before the games, for whatever reason, like I'd be nervous even despite the fact that when I like thought about it objectively, I knew that once I got on that field, that I was going to be a man amongst boys, right? But before like every game and big opportunity, I felt like a lot was on the line, and I'd be like nervous, right? And I look back on that, and I was like, and even as a younger player, it compares almost to when I was a freshman. And I remember the first time we went up to Maryland, I was really nervous, right? Because you going out there, it's like very violent, and you want to perform at a high level because you really
Yeah.
care about performance too. Despite and then on top of that, someone's like trying to kill you on the other side, right? They want to embarrass you, right? So I think that's kind of like what prompts the like butterflies, right? And what is that a signal of? We're getting out of our comfort zone. And so I was like, wow. And I just realized, I just thought about this very recently. It's like I need to be seeking that. That is a signal that we're getting out of our comfort zone. When you have those butterflies where it's like something you know you should be doing, you're not doing it, and you need to do it. If you feel that feeling, I can bet you that you're not stuck then because you're forcing to push through the discomfort. And that's how we like grow. And then we go force and we push our way through it. And we're like, oh, like it wasn't all I built it up and to be in my mind. And so if we're not feeling that feeling ever, then that might be a warning signal that we're trying to coast a little bit too much.
That's great, great way to end the podcast, Larry. Really appreciate you coming on, talking about peak performance. Where can listeners find out more about your company?
Yeah, I best is just my social channels. Check me out on X, Larry English underscore, Instagram, Larry English underscore, and LinkedIn, Larry English. Those are the best ways to find me. And then we link to our website and our videos and things like that, and our content from all those places and those platforms.
Awesome. Check him out, follow him. This is Gary Lipsky signing off. I'll be back next week with another informative episode on the Real Estate Investor Podcast. To all of our listeners, thanks for joining us. And if you like this episode, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and like, subscribe, and leave a review, as it will help us reach more people. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do at Break of Day Capital, head over to our website at breakofdaycapital.com and sign up for our newsletter and fill out our investor application. We'll talk to you next week.